Welcome back in. Over the past few days, we have heard more details about Trayvon Martin's life, suspicion of what happened, suspension from school, and all that kind of stuff. We're talking about, of course, the shooting of that young man down in Florida, and now his character is pretty much being torn apart. And the details, though, are they relevant to the investigation? This morning, defense attorney Ivan LePendu is joining us to talk a little bit more about this case and some of the nuances, about basically defending yourself. And good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, obviously everybody's following this very, very closely, every single detail on who was the aggressor and who was the bad guy and who was not. But there's a lot of questions. But let's go to, first of all, the law down there that says basically you can defend yourself. And I'm wondering, how does that apply here in Utah? I know we have a similar law.
Yeah, in Florida, they have a stand your ground law, which says when you're somewhere lawfully and someone is aggressive towards you, you don't have a duty to retreat. You don't have to leave where you're at lawfully. And in Utah, there's a very similar law that says you don't have a duty to retreat if someone is attacking you. The law in Florida is more strongly worded, where it specifically says you can meet force with force. Yeah. The Utah law doesn't have that specific language in it, but it is similar, where it says you don't have a duty to retreat from aggression, and you do have the right to defend yourself from
Right, but as I understand it, and I know the criteria used for police officers is if you feel as if your life is in danger, then you can use lethal force in exchange. I think there's a big, huge question here as to whether this guy's life was in danger. He was the one who had the gun. The other kid had a pack of Skittles and some iced tea.
Right, and yeah, and that's always the case. No matter whether there's a stand your ground law or not, you can't use deadly force if you don't feel that you're threatened. You can't just see something happening and use deadly force just because you don't like the way someone looks.
Be judge, jury, and executioner
exactly.
all on the street.
And it has to be a reasonable fear of your safety and fear of imminent harm coming to you. And so if you don't have that reasonable fear, then you can't use deadly force to protect yourself. And so that's why all the information becomes relevant as to who's the aggressor, what exactly happened that night. If you can't, and you also can't use deadly force to defend yourself if you're the original aggressor. Yeah. If you start the fight and then they fight back, you can't say, well, I was defending myself, because you were the original aggressor.
Unfortunately, in this particular case, and I mean, this is kind of harsh to say, but a dead man can't defend himself. So we will maybe never know exactly what happened, although witnesses are coming forward with a variety of stories.
That's very true. And that's one thing that the family has commented on, too. You don't want to re-victimize the victim by bringing up some of these issues about his past and what's happened at school and things like that. But some of it does become relevant as far as, is it possible that he was the aggressor and Zimmerman was actually acting in self-defense? And so that's why it is an issue. But you want to be very careful the way that you do it. And the family has rightfully said, you don't want to re-victimize him. You don't want to tarnish his reputation by digging out just any dirt you can find, but you do have to figure out what is relevant so you can determine what happened that night.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the fact that he had some marijuana in his backpack probably is not worthy of the death penalty out in the streets in front of your house.
Marijuana isn't typically a drug that induces a lot of aggression.
Right, exactly. All right, Ivan, thank you for coming in. I do appreciate your time here this morning.